Hey, welcome again. My name is John, and I'm going to talk about the review of South of Midnight. Oh, whew, sorry. Getting through that game really kind of put me in a mood, you know what I'm saying? Well, I reckon you're... But I suppose you're here to listen to my thoughts on the game South of Midnight, and the port to Nintendo Switch 2. So let's open the book and get to this tale. You play as Hazel, a young adult who's currently living with their mother and in the middle of a hurricane storm in Louisiana. And they're trying to set out just to get to safety when things get turned upside down when Hazel's home with her mom in it gets swept away in the storm. And that really kicks off the whole adventure here as she's on a quest to rescue her mom. And she'll soon find out that there's more to it than a simple hurricane. And the way this story has been told like a southern tale, narration and all,
On her journey to find her house downriver, Hazel felt hushed and awed by what she saw. Spirits appeared before her.
is compelling throughout the whole experience. That is one thing I really appreciate about this game, is its story and narrative. And every cast of character is super unique, from the average southern neighbor to something more mythical like a talking catfish or the stuff of legends. And this all really gets heightened with how the game is presented with this very purposely animated claymation style. Though I will say it is smoother than I would expect out of a claymation style. And if you really don't dig that claymation style, another good point to this game is there is a lot of accessibility features to make this game experience tailored towards you. So you can turn off those animation effects and tweak the game to your liking. Like if you just want to skip through some difficult combat sections, just tailor the experience how you like it on these options. And they present it to you right away. So with all these accessibility options to make the game as intuitive to you, you can really just get right through the story, which I think is the core element of this game that really kind of strings things together. And that's a bit of a pun because your main character is actually known something as a weaver. And those are legendary people who can see the fabrics of everything around them as like physical manifestation and are able to heal mythical wounds called stigmas that haunt and plague the lands. And the narrative of generational trauma is a very core element of the game and how to heal from it. And that's a very deep and emotional thing to cover, which made me a little worried on how well it would pull off. And while I don't think it fully captured the message, it was good enough to where I felt and cared for these characters. It just never led up to a hard-hitting moment that I wish it pulled off to. One thing that really did help accentuate all the storytelling was the very tailor-made music for this game, which was a highlight throughout the entire game. This game's soundtrack slaps, as not only are they good listening, but they often tell stories that tie into what's going on with the game, and it really almost got me emotionally choked up during some gameplay moments.
It was my shame, and I said goodbye. I said farewell. I took my hammer, and I took it to hell.
But when it comes to an audio experience and getting choked up, one problem I had early on was the game having audio stutters during the cutscenes.
What you doing on my porch in all of this weather, babe?
I'm just checking on you, see if you need anything. You holding up okay?
I'm doing just fine.
And since this is a narrative-based game, that's kind of an important deal. This was happening constantly throughout the game and seemingly getting worse, so I did a bit of a Hail Mary move, and I realized it was on my micro SD card express and not the built-in storage for the Nintendo Switch 2. So I shifted it onto the Nintendo Switch 2 storage, and that alleviated those issues to almost 99%. So if you do get this game, I highly suggest you store it on your Switch's internal memory for now, unless they get this patched, because this is the first time I've ever played a game like this where audio issues became a determining factor on my enjoyment of the game. So once I did that action of moving on to internal storage, not only did it improve the audio, but the performance wasn't always living up to what I hoped. So when I moved it to internal storage, there was a slight improvement. I'm not going to say it's perfect. I think this game's port is okay, And oddly enough, the further along in the game, it actually improves. But during those opening hours, it is a bit rough. And I hope they can come to patch this, because when the game is running how it's intended on the Switch 2, it's a super beautiful game. I mean, just look at these scenes I've had in the game. And the lighting work and the character models, they all just look gorgeous on the Nintendo Switch 2 when it's working at its best. So that's a bit of a disappointment for me that it doesn't always live up to it, but at least it ends strong. As like I said, the later half of the game seems to just get better and better with the performance. Alright, I really wanted to get that one tangle I had on the game out of the way because I find it very important to share that. So now when it comes to gameplay, I actually really enjoyed this game. It feels like a PlayStation 2 game, very God of War-esque, and my exhaustion from massive open world games made this feel super refreshing. Sometimes I just want to see an interesting story with fun gameplay and combat, and that's exactly what I got. Now, the strangest thing I've enjoyed the most out of this game was the platforming. I thought the mechanics used for platforming were really solid and fun to do, and I kind of wish they focused on that for the most part of the game, because I always had a good time with the platforming and the puzzle solving the most. The combat is fine though. It's serviceable and it has a good flow to it. It just never really fully lives up to something like God of War, where that combat is the focus and fun of the game. But when the game does focus on the platforming, it can kind of feel like a Bayou Banjo-Kazooie, at least in the game feel. It's not structured like a collectathon, but there are platforming focused segments where you're running away from a threat, and I never wanted to skip these scenes because I got to enjoy those good platforming segments, and those were a real highlight of the game. And when it comes to the gameplay flow, the game eventually builds up to a point, never quite lives up to the climax of the game, and kind of whimpers out at the end. It doesn't ever fall flat, mind you, but it feels a bit weaker comparison to somewhere in the middle of the game. But yeah, overall, this game is a solid experience. And I wish there was more to return to once you beat the game, besides the well-written notes you find throughout the game. They are nice, but I wish there was just something more. Side activities, more platforming challenges, just a little bit more. It left me wanting, and not in the best way. So overall, I like South of Midnight, but I feel like it had a strong start and middle, and just didn't know what to do beyond that. And when it comes to the port quality, it needs just a little bit more work to it. And I hope they come around to patching it just a little bit more so it reaches the quality it so much deserves, because this game is quality. And I liked South of Midnight. I think it's a solid fit for the Nintendo Switch 2, but this Southern Tale just needs a little bit more spit shine to truly get the best out of it. So that's my thoughts on South of Midnight. Thank you all for watching, and for more on all things gaming, subscribe to GameXplain. See ya!